December 17, 1944, Western Front, near the Belgian town of Bastogne. The air was cold, visibility moderate, and the ground frozen solid. Elements of the U.S. 4th Armored Division advanced cautiously along a narrow forest road. Their lead vehicles included several M4A3E2 Sherman jumbo tanks. These tanks were a recent modification of the standard M4 series. Each carried up to 7 inches of frontal armor and a reinforced cast turret. Their presence marked one of the first major deployments of this variant in combat. German reconnaissance units had first reported the tanks the previous evening. Initial assessments described them as unusually heavy Shermans, possibly improvised. Oberst Hans von Mellenthin, commanding a local Panzergruppe detachment, dismissed the report. He referred to the Sherman as a toy tank built in numbers, not quality. For most of the war, German officers regarded the M4 as inferior to the Panther and Tiger. However, that morning's encounter would begin to alter that perception. At 7:40 hours, the 2nd Panzer Division launched a counterattack from the southeast. The engagement occurred near the village of Marvai, approximately 3 kilometers from Bastogne. Visibility was reduced by low mist, with intermittent artillery fire from both sides. German Panzer IVs advanced through open ground, supported by infantry in half-tracks. They expected to destroy another group of standard Shermans with relative ease. The lead American tank, Cobra King, commanded by Lieutenant Charles Boggis, opened fire first. Its 75mm gun struck a Panzer IV at 800 yards, igniting the vehicle within seconds. German tank crews returned fire immediately. Several 75mm and 88mm rounds impacted the jumbo's front glacis without penetration. Observers from both sides noted the ricochets and the absence of internal damage. The M4A3E2's reinforced hull absorbed multiple direct hits without critical failure. By 8:15, 2 Panzer IVs and 1 Stu-G3 were destroyed. The German formation began to withdraw behind the tree line to reassess. American tankers advanced slowly, maintaining formation and suppressive fire. Infantry from the 37th Tank Battalion followed closely behind the armored column. Captured German reports later described the encounter as unexpected resistance from unusually thick Shermans. The term jumbo had not yet been recognized by German intelligence. Tank recovery crews found unexploded 88mm shell fragments embedded in the frontal armor. Technical officers measured the indentations and noted the unusual resistance to penetration. They photographed the impact marks for further study by Ordnance engineers. By midday, the sector stabilized. Both sides ceased offensive movement due to fuel shortages and poor visibility. American crews inspected their tanks for damage and documented results. Cobra King had sustained 8 confirmed direct hits with no armor perforation. Mechanics reported only surface deformation and damaged track guards. The after-action report, filed at 14:20 hours by Major William C. Downey, noted, "New heavy armor Shermans performed beyond expectation. Morale among crews increased markedly. German observers, monitoring intercepted American communications, began noting references to jumbo. By evening, the name appeared in multiple field intelligence summaries distributed to Panzer headquarters. This encounter at Bastogne represented one of the earliest German confrontations with the M4A3E2. It revealed the existence of a new level of American armor protection previously thought impossible. For many German officers, it marked the first realization that the Sherman was no longer a toy. The battlefield, cold and silent by nightfall, recorded the beginning of that change in perception. By late 1944, the European front had become a contest of endurance and production. German armored divisions, depleted by years of combat, faced an overwhelming Allied advance. The United States, leveraging vast industrial capacity, produced nearly 50,000 Sherman tanks. Quantity ensured battlefield presence, but survivability remained a concern among Allied crews. Reports from Normandy had revealed catastrophic losses to German 75mm and 88mm guns. In response, the Ordnance Department authorized a limited heavy-armored variant of the M4A3. Development began in mid-1944 at the Fisher Tank Arsenal, Michigan. The project's directive was simple: increase armor protection without halting production. Engineers reinforced the front glacis to 7 inches and the turret to 6 inches. The additional armor increased vehicle weight to approximately 42 tons. The suspension was modified with stronger springs to sustain the load. The variant received the designation M4A3E2 assault tank, unofficially nicknamed Jumbo. Only 254 units were built between September and October 1944. They were distributed selectively to frontline armored divisions in Western Europe. Primary recipients included the 3rd, 4th, and 9th Armored Divisions under 3rd Army Command. Operational doctrine intended the Jumbo to lead assaults, drawing enemy fire from lighter tanks. The concept reflected a gradual shift in U.S. armored warfare priorities. Protection began to outweigh speed and maneuverability, particularly in fortified zones. German intelligence remained unaware of the Jumbo's existence until late December 1944. Interrogations of captured American tankers had yielded no mention of a heavy Sherman. Most German units continued to classify the Sherman family as light or medium tanks. The appearance of heavily armored examples caused confusion in several panzer divisions. Field officers attributed their resilience to temporary field modifications rather than factory design. The Battle of the Bulge altered these assumptions rapidly. As American and German armored forces clashed in the Ardennes, numerous Jumbos entered combat. At Bastogne, St. Vith, and Clairvaux, the new tanks were repeatedly observed surviving direct hits. German tank commanders reported unusual engagement results. In several cases, Tiger I and Panther crews required multiple shots to disable a single vehicle. These reports circulated among Panzergruppen in daily situation briefings. The Oberkommando des Heers, OKH, in Zossen reviewed the first detailed account on December 22. It described a Sherman with frontal armor exceeding that of the Panther's lower hull. The summary concluded, enemy has introduced reinforced variant of M4. Appears rare but effective. The report urged immediate field measurement and photographic documentation. German ordnance officers at the Kummersdorf testing center received fragments for metallurgical analysis. In Allied correspondence, General George S. Patton noted the tank's value in the Ardennes. His December 29 field message to 3rd Army headquarters stated, "New assault Shermans proving invaluable in holding against German armor. Recommend more units." By year's end, approximately 150 Jumbos were confirmed in active service. The shift in armor balance, though numerically small, carried significant psychological weight. For the first time since 1942, American crews could advance under sustained fire with confidence. Conversely, German tank crews faced opponents whose armor could no longer be dismissed. What began as an experimental adaptation soon demonstrated strategic effect in local engagements. The Western Front, frozen and exhausted, had entered a new technical phase. Armor, once Germany's decisive advantage, was now contested by American industrial adaptation. The M4A3E2 jumbo symbolized that change, not through numbers, but through survival under fire. January 3, 1945. Near the town of Rochefort, Belgium. The 9th Armored Division conducted recovery operations after the German withdrawal. Several destroyed Panzer IVs and 2 disabled Panthers were examined by Ordnance officers. Nearby, a damaged M4A3E2 jumbo remained operable despite visible structural impacts. Its front plate bore multiple craters from 88mm and 75mm projectiles. None had penetrated the main armor, only dented and fractured the external casting. Technical observers from the 702nd Tank Destroyer Battalion performed detailed documentation. They recorded plate thickness, slope angles, and shell impact distribution. A steel hardness test conducted on-site confirmed the armor's superior ballistic resistance. The armor composition utilized homogeneous rolled steel with improved tempering techniques. Reports estimated it could withstand direct fire from German anti-tank guns under 1,000 yards. In contrast, German field teams operating nearby recovered several spent American shells. These were standard 75mm APC M61 rounds used by the jumbo's gun. Ballistic evaluation showed limited effectiveness against Panther frontal armor. German analysts concluded that, while heavily protected, the jumbo's offensive power was unchanged. They categorized it as a defensive or assault-breaching tank, not a main battle vehicle. Captured American maintenance manuals obtained near Bastogne confirmed some technical data. German interpreters translated entries detailing reinforced suspension and modified final drives. The manuals referred to a heavy assault Sherman intended for leading infantry-supported thrusts. This information circulated through Panzergruppe West Intelligence on January 10. A classified memorandum noted, enemy armor increasingly specialized. Countermeasures to be revised. Meanwhile, within American command, field reports praised the jumbo's performance. Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams of the 37th Tank Battalion submitted an after-action review. He wrote, "Jumbos lead every advance. Crews trust their armor. Germans waste fire." Maintenance officers observed that despite added weight, mechanical reliability remained acceptable. Fuel consumption increased only slightly, and engine wear was within tolerances. Engineers at the 3rd Armored Division workshops began experimental modifications. Some crews replaced the standard 75mm gun with the higher-velocity 76mm M1 cannon. This adaptation required turret counterweight adjustment but improved penetration capability. The modified jumbos became valuable assets in mixed armored formations. German intelligence received photographic evidence of such modifications by mid-January. Reconnaissance units along the Moselle River documented Shermans with reinforced armor and longer barrels. Analysts initially mistook them for British Firefly models. Subsequent comparison confirmed a distinct variant, heavier and less maneuverable. A report from the 116th Panzer Division stated, Sherman assault type, turret thick, front impervious to 75mm. At Kummersdorf, testing on recovered armor fragments continued through early February. Microscopic examination revealed a higher manganese content than typical Allied plate. This provided enhanced ductility, reducing the likelihood of spalling under high-velocity impact. The metallurgical department concluded, armor represents improved American foundry process. The data were forwarded to the Panzer Commission for material comparison. By this time, German crews had adopted new engagement tactics against jumbos. Instead of frontal confrontation, they aimed for side and rear shots at close range. Ambush positions were favored over open ground duels. Even so, penetration remained inconsistent beyond 500 meters. Field gunners using 75mm Pak 40 weapons required multiple strikes for disabling hits. American units, aware of their new advantage, advanced more confidently through contested zones. Infantry used the jumbos as mobile shields in urban combat. At Clervaux, one unit breached a fortified position after sustaining 23 direct hits. This event became a documented example of the jumbo's survivability in sustained action. For both sides, these encounters transformed battlefield assessment into technical study. German officers who once dismissed the Sherman as fragile now sought detailed data on its evolution. The toy tank of 1942 had become a subject of tactical concern by early 1945. Every engagement produced measurable results, recorded, analyzed, and distributed through intelligence channels. The front lines had turned into laboratories of armored warfare, measured in armor angles and millimeters of steel. February 1945. Western Germany. The Siegfried Line. Allied armored formations pressed through dense defensive belts of concrete, wire, and gun emplacements. Among them were dozens of M4A3E2 jumbo tanks, assigned to spearhead assaults on fortified sectors. Their performance under continuous fire confirmed prior field reports. Frontal armor remained impenetrable to most German guns. At the 9th Armored Division command post near Prüm, intelligence summaries recorded notable trends. German units now identified heavy Shermans as priority targets alongside tank destroyers. However, effectiveness remained limited. In repeated engagements, even direct hits from 88mm flak guns failed to achieve consistent results. Fragments from these encounters were recovered, photographed, and logged for ordnance study. Panzer crews reported frustration during close combat. Radio intercepts captured comments such as, "The American heavy cannot be destroyed frontally." Reports from the 2nd SS Panzer Division noted that 75mm and short 88mm guns bounce uselessly at range. Tactical manuals began recommending concentrated flank fire or high-explosive rounds aimed at the suspension. The shift in perception among German officers became measurable by February 20th. Field intelligence assessments classified the jumbo as a limited but superior armored threat. The earlier dismissive tone toward Allied tanks disappeared from reports. Commanders acknowledged that the Sherman line had reached parity in defensive design. The psychological effect on frontline units was significant. Crews no longer approached American armor with routine confidence. At the same time, American after-action documentation reinforced this conclusion from the opposite side. In a February 22 report, Captain Robert Withers of the 4th Armored Division wrote, "German gunners direct full batteries on jumbos first. They fail to penetrate, then retreat. This repeated pattern confirmed that German tactical doctrine had adjusted under duress. The once predictable advantage of the Panzer was eroding." Engineers within the U.S. Ordnance Department correlated these outcomes with material improvements. Ballistic test data from Aberdeen Proving Ground showed that jumbo frontal armor equaled that of the Tiger I. Against German 75mm PZGR 39-40 ammunition, penetration was rare beyond 600 meters. The slope of the upper glacis further increased effective resistance by nearly 20%. Such figures validated the field observations from Bastogne and Rochefort. German workshops attempted to replicate captured armor samples for comparison. At Kummersdorf, metallurgists described the steel's grain structure as remarkably consistent and ductile. The report concluded, "Enemy armor production demonstrates superior process control and alloy uniformity." This acknowledgement marked a reversal of wartime assumptions regarding industrial quality. The notion of the Sherman as a mass-produced, inferior tank was no longer tenable. Strategically, the implications extended beyond technical data. The Wehrmacht faced shrinking resources and declining fuel reserves. Each engagement with jumbos consumed ammunition at unsustainable rates. The German command recognized that destroying these tanks required rare, high-caliber weapons. Such guns were increasingly unavailable due to logistical collapse and Allied air superiority. By March 1945, the term Heavy Sherman appeared in nearly every German intelligence digest. Commanders along the Rhine requested new armor-piercing rounds specifically to counter the M4A3E2. Few reached frontline units in time. Allied forces continued advancing through towns, using jumbos as mobile fortifications in support of infantry. The cumulative evidence, ballistic, operational, and psychological, produced a clear conclusion. The M4A3E2 had neutralized Germany's long-standing advantage in tank warfare. For the first time in the European campaign, American armor commanded respect on equal technical terms. In post-action interrogations, captured German officers frequently referred to the jumbo as a bunker on tracks. The realization had settled definitively. The Sherman was no longer a target of ridicule, but an opponent requiring calculation. March 1945. The Rhine River. American bridgeheads expanded rapidly as German defenses fragmented under sustained assault. M4A3E2 jumbo tanks were now integrated into every major armored advance across the Western Front. Their presence influenced both Allied tactics and German strategic evaluations. U.S. Army archives recorded more than 130 jumbos in operational condition by the end of the month. The vehicle's performance shaped new doctrines within the Armored Force Board. Analysts concluded that armor superiority could be achieved through adaptation, not reinvention. The success of the jumbo demonstrated the advantage of modular modification using existing platforms. Rather than producing a completely new heavy tank, U.S. industry reinforced an established model. This reduced training demands, streamlined logistics, and maintained production continuity. It was an industrial solution as much as a battlefield one. Within the German High Command, the tank's emergence prompted urgent reassessment. Reports from Panzergruppe West and Army Group B listed increasing tank losses to well-protected Shermans. Even where Allied firepower remained modest, their endurance under fire altered engagement dynamics. The OKH Intelligence Bureau noted on March 18. Enemy armored formations demonstrate prolonged resistance, delaying counter-fire and conserving ammunition. This observation underlined how survivability, not weapon power, was determining combat longevity. German production, constrained by shortages of alloy steel and synthetic fuel, could not match the trend. Fewer than 500 Panthers and Tigers were produced between January and March 1945 combined. Meanwhile, Allied factories delivered more than 1,500 Shermans per month, including the improved variants. The German economy, repeatedly bombed and fragmented, lacked the means to respond technologically. The toy tank had evolved faster than its critics could adapt. Field experience confirmed the jumbo's effect on Allied infantry operations. Units used the tanks as moving cover during urban clearing actions in Cologne and Remagen. Reports from the 9th Armored Division described complete confidence among foot soldiers advancing behind jumbos. The psychological effect extended beyond protection. It symbolized mechanical reliability and American persistence. Officers noted reduced casualty rates in combined arms assaults where the heavy Shermans led. By contrast, German armored forces entered a state of attrition. Limited ammunition, untrained replacement crews, and reduced maintenance capacity eroded combat effectiveness. Captured war diaries from the 11th Panzer Division contained repeated references to invulnerable Shermans. Commanders ordered artillery and air strikes in place of direct tank engagements when possible. Such adaptations reflected strategic desperation more than tactical innovation. The Allied analytical branches collected these developments into formal intelligence assessments. A March 26 memorandum from SHAEF summarized: German resistance increasingly disorganized. Heavy Shermans maintained superiority in defense and assault roles. The document recommended continuation of the M4A3E2 program until post-war standardization. Although production had ceased months earlier, field performance validated its limited run success. The broader industrial context reinforced this conclusion. American steel plants operated without interruption, unlike their German counterparts. Each jumbo required approximately 20 tons of high-grade armor plate. This material allocation was sustainable for the United States but impossible for Germany by 1945. Allied production networks could adjust weight, armor thickness, and output simultaneously. The flexibility of the U.S. wartime industry had transformed a medium tank into a heavy assault vehicle within months. In intelligence circles, this adaptation was viewed as a decisive example of combat-driven engineering. Reports from the U.S. Army Service Forces highlighted the rapid feedback loop between field performance and design adjustment. German analysts later referred to this as industrial improvisation at scale. The result was strategic as well as tactical. Germany's armored advantage had been cancelled not by technology alone, but by process. By late March, as American forces approached the Ruhr, the term jumbo became synonymous with indestructibility. Photographs of surviving tanks, their armor scarred but intact, circulated among both Allied and German troops. To American soldiers, they represented protection. To German officers, they represented the failure of prior assumptions. The contrast illustrated a central wartime lesson: production efficiency could equalize the battlefield as effectively as innovation. April 1945. Central Germany. The remnants of the Wehrmacht retreated toward the Elbe River as Allied forces advanced from the west. Among the spearheading units were M4A3E2 jumbo tanks, many of which had survived months of continuous combat. Photographs from the 4th and 9th Armored Divisions documented heavily scarred vehicles still operational. Their armor bore impact marks from German 75mm and 88mm guns, yet most remained combat-ready. Field maintenance records from the 3rd Armored Division listed minimal structural failures. Crew reports emphasized the value of the vehicle's protective strength during assault and breakthrough operations. Major William Downey summarized in April's 6th correspondence: confidence in armor directly improved unit cohesion and aggressiveness under fire. His assessment matched similar reports from Patton's 3rd Army and Hodges' 1st Army. Post-war technical evaluations confirmed the tank's remarkable performance statistics. Aberdeen Proving Ground tested recovered jumbos between May and August 1945. Results showed that frontal armor resisted penetration from the German 88mm kilowatt K36 up to 1,000 meters. This placed the M4A3E2 among the most resilient Allied tanks of the war. Its protection levels exceeded both the Panther's Glacis and the Tiger Ice turret front in several impact tests. German post-campaign analyses, compiled by surviving Panzer officers, acknowledged these findings. A translated report from General der Panzertruppe Fritz Bayerlein stated, American armor, once inferior, achieved parity through practical reinforcement and volume production. The document was part of an intelligence collection prepared for Allied evaluation in 1946. It reflected a shift in perspective among former German commanders who had underestimated Allied engineering. In U.S. Army Ordnance Board minutes dated August 1945, discussion focused on lessons derived from the Jumbo program. Recommendations included standardizing modular armor concepts for future designs. These findings directly influenced subsequent tank development, including the M26 Pershing and postwar M46 Patton series. The concept of field survivability as a measurable design goal originated from the Jumbo's battlefield data. From an industrial standpoint, the M4A3E2 represented the culmination of wartime adaptability. It was neither revolutionary nor complex, yet it bridged the gap between medium and heavy armor. Its success lay in rapid modification, mass coordination, and predictable mechanical reliability. In this respect, the tank embodied the operational philosophy of the late-war U.S. Army, efficiency over elegance. For Germany, the tank's appearance illustrated a broader strategic decline. By the time German officers realized the significance of the Jumbo, the war's outcome was decided. Panzer divisions could no longer exploit technological superiority because logistics and manpower had collapsed. The era of small-batch elite weaponry ended as mass-engineered resilience prevailed. In post-war interviews conducted by the British and American intelligence services, numerous German officers commented on the psychological impact of encountering the heavy Sherman. Colonel Hermann Bork remarked, "Our men had to relearn respect for the enemy's tank. They no longer broke easily." Such statements captured the shift from derision to recognition that occurred between 1942 and 1945. Surviving Jumbos continued service into the early Cold War, some reclassified for training and reserve units. A few were transferred to Allied armies in Europe for evaluation and study. Today, preserved examples remain at Fort Knox and Bastogne, bearing visible traces of the war's final months. Each exhibits distinct impact marks, physical evidence of engagements once dismissed as impossible to survive. Historians later assessed the M4A3E2 not as a turning point, but as a symbol of wartime learning. It demonstrated that adaptation under pressure could produce results equal to innovation. The German assumption of superiority, once secure, dissolved under the weight of data and observation. In the cold arithmetic of armor and ordnance, the toy tank had become a fortress of steel. By the war's end, perception had reversed completely. German officers who once mocked the Sherman now studied its resilience in post-war debriefings. American engineers analyzed those same reports to refine future tank generations. The M4A3E2 Jumbo thus closed the European conflict as both a weapon and a lesson. A case study in how industrial adaptation, precision metallurgy, and battlefield feedback redefined armored warfare.